Have you ever wondered what the right row spacing is for your flower field? Let's check it out. This may seem like quite wide row spacing, but the challenge for us is really dealing with weed pressure. It's great to plant your flowers, have nice rows, but pretty quickly if you can't cultivate, you're going to have all kinds of challenges with weed pressure. So for us, what we do is we actually plant in wide, or have wide passes in between the rows. That way we can get in and cultivate, not only we can cultivate in between the rows. This is showing our sunflowers. See their wide area between the rows. If you measure from the base of the plant, from left side to right side, it's about 5 foot 8 inches to 5 foot 10 inches is the distance between the planted rows. We had a couple gaps this year. As you can see, we had heavy rains came in after we planted, so fortunately, some of these sunflowers didn't come up very well. This kind of shows an example of how we plant our flower fields. You can see a few weeds here and there. This hasn't been cultivated for about 2 weeks now. But again, this does allow for us to get about a 4 foot wide cultivator through these rows. Here's what we use for cultivating between the rows. So this is a noble cultivator, or what was a larger noble cultivator I cut down. See part of the logo there. Royal Stable link. So we cut this down. We measure it here. So it's about 4 foot wide. For the spacing, these shanks are about 10 to 11 inches on the front, about 12 inches there. It's about 10 inches. And then on the rear, spaced about 21 inch. That one's 20 inch. So basically gives a good coverage all the way across as you're cultivating. Nice thing about these cultivators is they float with the ground as opposed to a fixed cultivator. Sometimes you'll see the ones advertised at like 2-inch tubing, and there's either 2 or 3 rows, and they have the Danish tines kind of scattered around. Those work pretty well, except they're not independent, so the whole implement flexes up and down, whereas these gauge wheels, and I'll show in a minute here, these gauge wheels will float up and down depending on how the ground lays. So I added some jack stands on the front, one on each side. Just took some old well pipe and used that, so works pretty good. Here's a tractor I use for cultivating. This is an incredible little tractor. This is a Kubota B7100 HST, so it's got the 4-wheel drive, hydrostatic transmission. I do have the wheel spacing set out about as far as you can. So it's about 30 some inches. Let me measure it here. Yeah, it's about 31¼ inches. I also use this tractor for planting, and 30-inch width, so it's not running over where you planted. So the cultivator is just about too much weight for it. It will lift it, but it is about the maximum this little tractor will lift. It's only 16 horsepower, but this little tractor will just about go anywhere and do anything. It is just a really good tractor. So if you ever have an opportunity to pick up a B7100, we actually picked this up from German Bliss Implement, and I think it was Princeville, Illinois. Traveled quite a ways to pick it up, bought it used. But yeah, just a great little tractor. Can't say enough about this. I use this little tractor for bush hogging. I have a 45-inch bush hog. It'll just about go anywhere if you have it in four-wheel drive. So, and I also mentioned all the equipment we have is quick hitch compatible, which really saves on connection when you're connecting implements. So here's a good example. This shows cultivating on the left side of your screen. Just went through there. On the right side, that has not been cultivated yet. So you can see how nicely it cultivates uproots the weeds. So those will dry out pretty quick in the sun. We have a lot of issues with crabgrass here. So really does a good job cultivating. So here's our other cultivator we use around the flowers. So this is again a part of a noble cultivator that I cut down. Measures about 4 feet. Actually, it's the beam's a little bit wider than that, about 51 inches. May look a little odd, but this is really designed for just going around the edges. So once you cultivate through the field, once the flowers are too tall that you can't run over top of them, got this little strip on the edges, so this is what I use to run around the edges. Makes about a 16-18 inch cultivated area. And then I also run down the end rows. So just one cultivator shank. These are on, I guess it's about 13 inches. Duck foot, 2 3/4 inch duck foot. And what is that, about a 5 inch at the back. I left this on just for stability. Otherwise it'd be a little further out of balance, but again, obviously no coulters on this side. Some of you may question why we would want to cultivate as opposed to, say, running a rototiller or some kind of tiller through, between the rows. Well, the challenge is when you run that rototiller through, you're just basically beating the soil to death. And as you've probably observed, if that's what you do, what you end up with is just a fine powder of soil. There's no soil structure left. As opposed to when you're cultivating, you can see the clods, the structure is still intact. It's not a fine powder. We get a lot of winds at times. It's been super dry. And if you're tilling, all of your soil is going to blow away, or a lot of your topsoil is going to blow away with those strong winds. So this cultivating maintains the integrity, soil structure, just a better way to go in my opinion. Certainly if that's all you have, then that's what you have to use. But I would just encourage, if you have the ability to, and are mechanically inclined, have some tools, have a welder, pick you up an old cultivator, International, Farmall International, Noble, like the one I have, bought a couple of those. Massey Ferguson, lots of old cultivators around. You can pick those up for a couple $100. And out of that one cultivator, you can make a couple different tools that are pretty efficient at cultivating in small areas like we have here.